I have Council Marchese. I got Council Hanlon. I have Council McLaughlin.
Present.
And I have Council Martins.
Here.
We have 4 members present. We do have a quorum.
Please stand so with the flag.
You want to take the first piece and collect it? Like, take the two.
Madam Chairwoman?
I'm sorry. The chair recognizes Council McLaughlin.
Madam Chairwoman, may I make a motion that we take items 1 and 2 collectively off the calendar? And make a motion that we refer both items 1 and 2 to the meeting of Government Operations, Public Safety, and Public Service for April of this coming year. I have spoken with Mr. St. Louis, and we are going to work collectively with myself and Councilor Capone and yourself, Council Mons, to see that these items are resolved to the satisfactory of the residents and make the area safer, cleaner, and better for the residents of both of these areas of our city. So I would make a motion that we refer these to the April meeting and invite up Mr. St. Louis. Put that in a formal motion.
Councilor Hanlon.
I'll second that motion. And at these, we just got a communication from someone, I forget who it was, but I think it was from the law department, saying that when we go to these committee meetings, that these people are supposed to know the questions that we have for them. So I wanted to make sure now that any time that we do this, that we do know these questions. So if you're going to meet with the director, you have certain questions you're going to ask him. I'm through you to what chair.
May I answer that,
Yes, Councilor McLaughlin.
Chairwoman? Yes, Councilor Hanlon. I will be preparing questions and submitting them 7 days in advance for the April meeting, so that when Mr. St. Louis appears here in April, he will have the questions at hand.
What are the meeting you're going to have with them?
No, I only had telephone communication with him last week, and he explained to me that after the winter months, that he would come up and we would work together to be able to resolve these.
Okay.
I will give proper notification of my questions 7 days in advance.
And will we get those, excuse me, if I may, will we get those questions also? The committee members?
Councilor Hanlon, I'm happy to write them with you. Absolutely, you'll have
Thank
my
you.
questions.
Okay.
Awesome. Right. So, do you
Madam
want to
Chair.
add anything?
On the motion, I will add that I concur with my friend, Mr. Burley, because I disagree with the fact that we need to submit 7 days and no, 7 days in committee. In committee, I think on the floor it's one thing. 15 minutes before a vote 2 weeks ago, we get a 7-page memo from the administration jamming something that I considered very serious down our throats, and now they want 7 days in advance for a committee meeting. I think it's absurd, and I think it's outrageous, and we can have discussions about that going forward. But I think that if we're going to abide by 7-day rules, they need to also be respectful and not jam things down our throats 15 minutes before a meeting. Thank you.
The committee structure is supposed to be for open dialogue.
Yes.
Exactly.
A lot of give and take. To ask specific questions that could lead to follow-up questions that you didn't put in writing just delays government. It's basically stymies everything. This is the whole purpose of the committee structure. I absolutely agree that if you're going to put something on the city council agenda, you're going to need 7 days to do it if you want them up at a regular meeting. But that's the purpose of the committee structure. That's my personal
Right.
opinion.
From the chair, I agree that as we have a discussion, new questions will arise. So there's no way that we can submit the questions 7 days in advance, all the questions. But any further?
All right, item number 1. This is a resolution up by Councilors McLaughlin and Capone that the DPW director appear at this meeting to give an update on the proposed renovations around Everett Co-op. Item number 2 is a resolution offered by Councilors McLaughlin, Capone, and Martins that the city consider putting a blinking pedestrian crosswalk light or a raised crosswalk at the corner of Broadway and Summer Street.
So motion was made and seconded to refer the items 1 and 2 collectively to the Government Operations meeting in April. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Item number 3, this is a resolution offered by Council DePiero, requesting that a representative of Encore Boston Harbor and the mayor's office appear at this meeting to discuss employment data in relation to Everett residents.
So I received communication from Council DePiero that he had a prior commitment, so he won't be here tonight, but we do have a representative from the Encore. If you could please, if we can get a motion to invite the guests.
Madam Chairwoman, before we make that motion, I have a question, which is, are there any questions prepared by Councilor DePiero on this item?
I did not receive any
Not that
communications
you're
on
aware of?
that.
So I think that we should table this until next month's meeting, in fairness to the communication that we received from Ms. Mihir this week. If there's no questions in writing, I don't want to violate any law, and if the sponsor did not submit his questions, are we allowed to ask questions? I'm happy to talk about it, I'm happy
So
to discuss it. but
From,
I think that,
right,
you know, this is where we get into
from-
these gray areas.
the resolution is simple, you have to
exactly. So,
be prepared to give you the data. So instead of writing him back up next month, be willing to give you the information that you need right now.
Oh, and I
Counselor,
agree.
Counselor,
Council Bureau wants more information, you're more than welcome to write it back up. But the gentleman is,
Mr. Clerk, so Council DePiero reached out this morning. He did say that the guest would come here and we could ask our own questions. And if we were satisfied with the responses and the data, that he was fine with referring back to sponsor.
And I'm totally fine with that, I'm just asking procedurally, are we supposed, sorry?
this gentleman is not a department.
Okay. So the questions
So
are
do you-
only for, so this is where I'm trying to get a clarification. The statement that the city solicitor made this week is only related to department heads? So if we invite up another guest from anywhere else, we don't have to give the 7-day notice for questions? Okay, then let's proceed forward.
So please, Ms. Eric, if you can,
Mr. Crows?
if you could state your
Yeah.
name for the record, please.
Eric Kraus, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for Encore Boston Harbor.
Thank you so much again for being here tonight. Councils, do you have any questions for the guest? Council McLaughlin?
Madam Chairwoman, I would respectfully ask Mr. Kraus if he could go over this presentation that he has with us.
Sure.
And again, you know, not that we're trying to give you a hard time, I just wanted to make sure we're following procedural protocol. So I'd like to go through this, and if we have questions about the thing, we can have a discussion about it.
Oh, love that.
Is that
That's
fair?
why I'm
Is that
here.
fair?
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Perfect.
So I did prepare some information. Does everybody have a copy of it? There.
Nope.
There we go.
Yes?
Okay, so we can start on slide number 2, which is our employees. And this is the way we report. We have 3 measures at Encore Boston Harbor that we get measured against by the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. And it's the percentage of minorities, percentage of veterans, and percentage of women for our total workforce. Our goal for minorities is 40%, and we're currently at 54%. Our goal for veterans is 3% of the workforce, and we are at that goal, a little ahead of it, but 3% when you round. And for women, goal is 50%, and we are slightly below at 44%. This is an area that we are keenly focused on, and hopefully you'll see improvement the next time we report these numbers. We also then add a category of local employees, and our percentage goal is 75% of local employees, and the definition of a local employee is someone within a 30-mile radius of our property and facility. And while the goal's at 75%, we are tracking right now at 87% local employees that are employees. What this slide and the following slides do not contain, however, are the other businesses that are at Encore Boston Harbor. We don't add their employees in here, but it's important to note that if we didn't have our resort employees of Memoir, Mystique, Duncan, Watches of Switzerland, and Fratelli wouldn't be having jobs in Everett. So those numbers aren't in here, but if you added them, these numbers would be significantly higher. If you go to slide 3, if you look at our overall 2019 year-end numbers, total of 4,471 employees, and that comprises 3,326 full-time employees and 1,145 part-time employees. If you then break that down and you look at Everett residents, we currently have 471 full-time employees, 137 part-time employees, for a total Everett resident employee base of 608 employees. Turning to the next slide, and I'll answer whatever questions the council has for me after this, or the committee has for me. We currently have 608 Everett residents, which represents 14% of our active population. What's important to note here, only the city of Boston at 16% has a greater representation of employees. What's also important to note that Boston is 12 times the size of Everett, and we're pretty proud of the number of Everett residents we have, either at a full-time or part-time basis. I also wanted to provide a little information because a lot is said in social media, and I just wanted to clarify a couple things. But as part of our host community agreement with the city of Everett, we ensure that qualified Everett residents receive priority for applying for a job. And the word here, qualified, is if you're an Everett resident and you apply for something that you do not have a skill set for, you would not be deemed qualified. However, if you are qualified and you're applying for a position and you're from Everett, you receive priority status. And we take this very seriously, as we do with every element in our host community agreement with the city of Everett. We send weekly communications on job openings to City Hall, to the Chief of Staff, and our Vice President of HR and the employment team reviews staffing levels for Everett every single week. So this is something we take incredibly seriously. If you turn to my last slide, Everett residents, our employment numbers are reviewed with the Massachusetts Gaming Commission on a periodic basis. And then we have an Encore Career Advisory Committee, which includes representatives of Everett and all of the surrounding towns, and we go over employment numbers at those quarterly meetings. It's also important to note that should there be a position eliminated, we work really hard to find another job within our system for that individual. And by way of background, whether you are a valet working in the kitchen in one of our restaurants or an executive, there is a significant amount of time and money that is spent before that employee enters Encore Boston Harbor. So whether it's a dealer or me, for example, you go through screening, you go through drug testing, you then go through a 2.5-day onboarding experience before you start your job. So once you get through all of those qualifications and you are an approved Encore Boston Harbor employee, we don't want you to leave. It's not in our best interest, and it's not in the employee's best interest. So unless that employee has done something that we have to terminate them for. So we like to keep our employees. So if their position is eliminated, we work really hard to try to find something that they're qualified for. And then finally, regarding involuntary terminations, we have a progressive discipline policy that applies to all of our employees, regardless of residency. So while you may be applying for a job, if you're qualified from Everett, you're placed in priority. If you're a resident of any community, if you're not doing the job, we have a progressive system and that's regardless of where you reside. So with that, I hope that provides the backup you were looking for, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Sure. Councilor Hanlon, you have the floor.
Yes, if I could. Just a quick question, and I'm quite a guy for statistics, and so I get involved with a lot of that stuff.
Great.
I'm looking at page 2,
Yes, sir.
and I'm looking at minority, veterans, and women,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a count. And would it be possible for a female to be in a minority and also a veteran and appear in all three numbers?
Yes.
So this number of 4050 could be slightly different.
Of 4050?
Yeah.
No, that's the local, three different numbers, right? The local are just residents within a 30-mile radius.
That wasn't my question.
Okay?
My question was,
You could be a woman, you could be a veteran, and you could be a minority.
so you're on 3 lists.
Right, absolutely.
So that would make that the total number
But
of those
the last number isn't the total of anything.
Okay,
Okay, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
okay,
Right. But you are absolutely correct.
right.
And that's the way we track it, and that's the way the Gaming Commission tracks it as
Okay.
well.
Okay. I'm going to look for a different number sometime later.
Yeah,
I'll
please.
talk to you about it, okay?
Yeah, absolutely, and
Okay.
if we have the number, you can have it. I mean, we try to be as transparent as we can with the city.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So, Madam Chairwoman, I'm going to ask a series of questions, and Mr. Kraus, if you don't have the answer, it's quite okay. You
Yeah,
can get back
sure.
to me with an answer. To allude back to Councilor Hanlon's question, which was something that I was going to ask. So the numbers that are in front of us are not actual hard count numbers. And I say that because woman, veteran, minority. It could be 3 categories, but it's still one person.
Correct.
That's represented in the 3 categories.
Correct.
So the 2,029 woman number, right, total employees in category, it may not really be 2,000, sorry, the 100, I apologize.
Yeah, please.
I apologize.
I know where you're
The-
going with this,
the-
Council.
yes.
Wrong category to choose.
Exactly.
Because you
I
can only be a
apologize.
woman,
Exactly.
right?
I
But if you're a
apologize. I was-
veteran, that veteran could be a minority and could be, but let me just step back for
Sure,
1 second
absolutely.
on this chart. These are categories that we agreed to with the Mass Gaming Commission. I only brought it up because it's public data that I thought would be of interest. If you asked us, I would go to the next page to look at total employment in Everett residents. This is just a reporting requirement we have with the Gaming Commission, but quite frankly, I thought it would be interesting.
No, I think it's very
Yeah,
interesting. No,
absolutely.
I wholeheartedly agree.
But you're
with this
100% correct, and Mayor, you're 100% correct as well, because you could get credit, if you will,
Yeah.
for 2 other categories if you were female.
So, and I know that in the agreement, you had to have, well, you say right here,
Right.
you had to have a certain percentage
Right.
of, for each category.
Right.
But the percentage may not actually be truly represented if we're counting the same individual in the 3 categories. The percentage of the other categories might be lower if that individual is being counted in all 3 categories in the percentage category.
The way we've been asked to
Sure.
record this.
But do you see
is-
what I'm,
Right.
do you
but-
see what I'm saying? And I
right.
agree, that's the way the Mass Gaming
But
Commission is asking.
if I came in here and you said,
Sure.
Mr. Kraus, what's the percentage of minorities? And I said 54% of our population.
Sure.
That's an accurate statement. Number of women, accurate statement. Veterans, active statement. I listed these 3 because these are the categories in which we said we would have these percentages. That's not the way we.
Yeah,
go
no, I'm
into
not
it.
trying to
No,
question you
fine.
guys at all
Yeah.
in that category. I'm just
Absolutely.
saying that the numbers may not truly reflect what is actually on site for employees because they might be categorized in several categories.
Right.
That would make if it was me, I would be one person, but I might be in multiple layers of.
Absolutely.
Okay, so is there a way to be able to break down that even a little bit further to show us that individual pulled out because it's one
This
person,
is the
even though
way-
there are multiple
yeah.
categories?
In due respect, this is the way we do this for this reporting requirement.
Okay.
If it was totally up to me, we wouldn't break it out this way.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, you have a total employment number, and that's what, we want qualified people filling those jobs. We do want to have representation in what we feel is incredibly important, but to your point, you could get, it's not necessarily a clear number if
Right.
you're getting credit too. I understand that completely.
Absolutely.
But this is the way we report.
Nope, and I
Okay?
understand that, and that's fine. We can have a discussion about it
absolutely.
after the fact, and
Yep.
it's not on the issue at all. And Madam Chairwoman, I do have to disclose fully that my significant other is a steady extra part-timer at Encore Boston Harbor. And I
Right.
did file a disclosure form this evening in the city clerk's office. So discussing this evening has no bearing on that position whatsoever, but I do want to just make that publicly known that
Yeah.
that is the case. That being said, the full-time number, so
Are we talking
the
overall? or
overall,
average?
yes.
Yep.
The full-time, so there's currently on site 3,326 employees.
This is our year-end numbers for 2019.
Yep. So
Yes.
year end, December 31st of last year, there
Yep.
was 3,326 employees.
Full-time.
Full-timers,
Right?
correct.
1,145 part-time, for a grand total of 4,471.
Okay, that,
Total population.
okay, so your steady part-time is 1,145, brings you to 4,471. Has that number grown at all since the last 6 weeks?
If I came in here 3 weeks from now, I would have different numbers. And
Yeah.
the reason for that, and it's important for all of the constituents that have, all the municipalities, we have ebbs and flows in our business. So we might have a business, one of our businesses here that we're downsizing in, and we might have a business over here that we're adding jobs. And I'm just using this illustratively. I can't tell you a month from now if our employment's going to be 4,471, 4,600, or 3,800. It's just impossible to do that. What's important, though, is if your significant other
Sure.
is working there and her job is eliminated, that we try to find another job for that person because she's already in our system and already one of our employees.
Sure.
So
And-
like any service business, you're going to have fluctuations in employment. It is different. I was an officer at the Gillette Company, worked there for 15 years. I could tell you exactly the number of manufacturing jobs we needed in South Boston because you have your cost of goods,
Sure.
you have the number of blades you need to produce, and then you have the output. And that employment was very steady, year over year.
Yeah.
Service business
It
like ours,
fluctuates,
it
absolutely.
fluctuates dramatically.
Day by day,
Right.
absolutely.
And then you have the added benefit of when you try to do things, and I'll bring up one classic example. We put in automated beverage dispensers.
That's where I was going with this.
And I've never seen an outcry of 70 bartender jobs were reported that were going to be eliminated, or 70 jobs were going to be lost. Do you know how many people got laid off with those?
Well, I think it has been stated that you guys haven't actually laid off any positions
Zero.
yet, but you're
No.
resizing the company, which will, in fact, decrease. So then, that's why I'm asking this number from 6
for
weeks
the
ago.
automated beverage dispensers that we got significant negative publicity on, there were not 70 bartenders put out of work. At the end of the day, there were 0, okay? And we got jobs for all but 4 of those. We offered jobs to the 4 that didn't stay with us, and they elected to leave. Classic example of us introducing something, finding new responsibilities for those people impacted, and hopefully the majority of those people stay with the company. And that is the epitome of a service-run business. When we launched, we had a number of people that we needed to build up to the launch of our facility, and then after launch, we didn't need that number of people. So then, hopefully through attrition and not layoffs, people leave, find other jobs. But if we lay off a person that is qualified and doesn't have an employment issue, we work very hard to find that person a job.
So to date, there has only been 4 positions eliminated from the service beverage,
The automated
automated
dispensers?
dispensary that has been introduced?
No, only 4 people are not with the company, but they were offered jobs and elected not to
But
have
4
them.
less individuals
Right.
are no longer with the company.
Right.
Is there still downsizing happening today?
Today?
That was a reflection from that, because there was reports stated that there would be a resizing of the brand
We're
of the
always
company.
resizing, but resizing, sir, doesn't necessarily mean reduction. Resizing to us is having the right number of employees for the department or the job at hand. And we will always have ebbs and flows in our business. That's just the nature of it. And I would only offer that other like businesses, hotels, restaurants, and the types of businesses we have also experience the similar fluctuations. What is unfortunate for us, because of our size and the number of people we employ, I would ask you if you looked at other hotels, restaurants, entertainment venues, go by a percentage, because we just have a significant number of more employees, given the size of our.
And I don't want to steal all the full time,
No,
but I
please.
would love to discuss it a
Yeah,
little bit further in
love to
detail
help
with
you
you.
out
And
with this.
I appreciate the fact that we're having the opportunity to talk
Yep.
to you for the first time, so that we can actually have an open dialogue, so that we can then continue to talk about these. So my other question on page 4 is, you said the chief of staff is you're reporting to weekly on the positions. Do you meet with the mayor's administration quarterly, monthly, or so forth to go over these employment numbers? Because I'll be honest, I haven't seen these employment numbers in a very long time. I can't even tell you, I don't know if my colleagues have seen them, but I can't tell you the last time I saw employment numbers.
We have a percentage of 14%. There is absolutely nothing in our host community agreement that says we have to report numbers, number one.
Wholeheartedly
Number two,
agree. I'm just asking
right,
for
number two,
transparency, if you guys are.
100% transparent.
Are doing it though on it.
We have a standing meeting every Tuesday morning with the mayor and his administration.
Okay.
More times than not, I bring up, or someone from my team brings up, or the mayor himself brings up employment, and we discuss it. I mean, we were very open over the automated dispensers.
So my only question on that, go
Right,
ahead.
so, well, let me answer your question, sir. So we provide on a weekly basis job openings to his chief of staff via email. We have countless conversations with the mayor and his staff about employment. We want this to work for the city of Everett, and the city of Everett, quite frankly, needs this to work for us, because the more we are in sync with one another, the more revenue the city makes from the hotel and meals tax, the better we do, and the better we can then do what we want to do to help the mayor and help the city revitalize the city of Everett. If we don't do well, we can't do that. So we take employment extremely seriously. On the other hand, we need to run our business, and you're going to see ebbs and flows. But it's not, we're not doing this shooting from the hip. We're doing this very strategically.
Sure, and I will say that, all due respect to the chairwoman, there's 3 of us in this room tonight that helped bring this project to
Absolutely.
fruition in the city of Everett 7 years ago, and nobody wants to see it succeed more than the 3 of us sitting at these tables right now. So
Correct.
the problem is we don't get the information. The meetings that you're having Tuesday mornings with the administration, unfortunately, some of my colleagues, myself included, we're not seeing that information. We're not hearing those reports. So I'm wondering if we can open a dialogue where once a quarter or once a month, you can shoot us an email and let us know the same information you're sharing with the administration, and that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it would be better if you asked, because per our host community agreement, annually we provide numbers to the city of Everett. It's part of the agreement that we signed. We want the city of Everett to feel good, really good about our presence here, and I know you worked extremely hard, Council, with Everett United, as did everybody here, to have us here. We are going to have ebbs and flows with the number of people.
Totally agree with you.
So if you have a question on employment and I can give you those numbers, we will. But you might see dramatic peaks or you might see dramatic decreases, but there's reasons behind all of that. And I don't want to do it on a monthly or even a quarterly basis, because you're going to see dramatic. If next time I come in here a year from now when we give the city a report and there's a significant uptick or a decrease, that's just because of what our business is, right? Sure. And you're going to see that continually.
No, and I think I totally agree with you.
Right.
And when Mr. Taco was here as the community liaison with the city government, we talked probably every other day on employment numbers and on all of these categories.
Good.
And I had not seen him in a while, and I'm glad to see them this evening, and I'm glad to open a line of communication with yourself, because I didn't know who the person was to be able to turn to be able to discuss this stuff.
Please.
So I look forward to having that ongoing dialogue so that we can understand transition because everybody wants us to succeed.
Absolutely.
And everybody's best interest is that this succeeds. So I appreciate the information tonight, and I look forward to having many more discussions with yourself and understanding all of this better. But I appreciate the information you shared with us this evening. Thank you.
Councilor Halen has a follow-up question.
Just one quick question. I think I forgot it. No. We have 4,050 employees that live within a 30-mile radius
Yes, sir.
of the Encore. Do you know how many live outside that 30-mile area that are employed there?
Well, if we have a total population right now of 44, so,
71.
right, so it would be 471,
Okay.
right? Roughly,
Yeah, okay.
right? And that's a split between full-time and part-time.
Okay, and just one person. Who's the farthest one away? Who'd be the farthest person away? Miles?
I can find that for you, but we,
Just
I
of
mean,
interest, that's all.
the biggest issue we have too is qualified dealers, believe it or not, because there was not a casino here. And we have a great relationship with Cambridge College, and they offer dealing courses to try to get qualified dealers here. So we've tried to have dealers come in from out of town, but cost of living has really hindered a lot of people from outside of this area. And I can find out who the farthest away is, but I know people. I work across the hall from a gentleman who takes the train in from Providence every day. So, I mean,
Nice drive.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Cross?
No,
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
I'm sorry, can you
Sorry.
turn your microphone?
Just asking that you can leave your contact with Mr. Burley so that
Sure.
we can have a dialogue
Sure.
going forward.
My
Thank you, Mr.
pleasure.
Cross.
Madam
All
Chair,
right,
thank you.
can we excuse our guests?
motion, second. Yeah, second.
We have a second. All in favor?
All right.
All right. Opposed? Thank you so much.
Madam
Have
Chair,
a-
thank you. Councilman, thank you very much.
You have a great night. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
What does Anthony say?
Madam Chairwoman,
Anthony sits there? Okay, yeah.
Well, he's going to read the item.
All right. Item number 4. This is a resolution by Council Jimmy Leahy that the fire chief come to this meeting to explain the fly movement system in the old Everett High School fire station.
Can we get a motion to invite?
make a
our
motion that we invite up Councilor Lee and Chief Colley, and if there is a
Representative from the union?
representative from the firefighters union, Local 143. Everybody is welcome to come up. Oh, I'm sorry. Make a motion, we invite up Mr. Lane also from maintenance. Thank you, Chief.
Testing, can you hear me?
Thank you. If you could please state your name for the record, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Councillor Lee,
Are the microphones on?
Madam Chairwoman, Councillor Lee, colleagues, how's everyone doing? Good, good, good.
Anthony Colley, Fire Chief Everett.
All right, so
All right,
Councilor Lee.
good evening,
you-
gentlemen.
So, Councilor Lee, you have the floor.
No, you gotta introduce me.
Seth McCullough with Everett Fire, Local 143, Executive Board Member.
All right, good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for being here tonight. Now, before I start to inquire, Mr. Chief Colley here about the Puma system, I'd like to talk about the Puma system so that our viewers know what it is and our audience, okay? So basically, a Puma vent system is essentially an exhaust extract system that extract hazardous vehicle exhaust emission from a variety of vehicle types in the fire station. hazardous vehicle exhaust emission in a fire station are a firefighter's most significant health risk and could be a serious legal liability for the fire department if not present in a facility. We can eliminate this hazard from the fire station with a PUMA-VENT code-compliant vehicle exhaust capture and removal system. So you could think of a PUMA-VENT system as a lifesaver itself. Okay, now Chief, this question that I'm about to ask you is utmost important, and I would appreciate
Excuse
your
me,
honesty
excuse me,
I'm
please.
sorry.
Through you, I think. He's a member of our council.
Yeah.
Can he be asking these
Well,
people
he's-
questions? I'm not, just don't want to make sure, you know.
Sorry, so he's asking of the sponsor.
Pardon?
So he's the sponsor
Well,
of
it
the
doesn't make
heat.
any difference.
Oh, okay.
He's a member of the council,
But he has to have permission from us to ask questions, right?
Oh, okay.
but he's not sitting here as a councilor.
Well, Councilor McLaughlin, yeah.
I just want to make sure, you know, because we're getting into the kind
So
of questions
Councilor
and everything,
McLaughlin
you know?
made the motion to invite him, to give him the floor. But so, do we want to make a
I've never seen
motion
this
to allow
before,
him?
that this has happened.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sorry,
Sure.
I'm not
You never
trying to
see
get
me
you-
Councilor
here
Hill. do you-
before
Councilor,
either, but
Sit as a invited guest, questioning the people that have been
Right.
here as an
Do
invited
we-
guest. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Do we
think that he
wanna-
should be over here.
Do we,
well,
because he's not a member of the
I know, I'm
committee.
saying, I think he should be. I know he can't be, you know.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying, you know.
Yeah.
because I'm not on the committee,
Yeah,
so
so he's not a member of the committee, so he's coming in as a guest, but he's the sponsor.
yeah.
Right, and there was a motion made by
I'll
Councilor
check that out
McLaughlin to
with
invite
someone
him.
later on.
Okay, well, do we have a motion so he can ask those questions?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Can we get a second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye?
Opposed?
Now,
Okay, go ahead.
Chief, this question that I'm about to ask you is the utmost important, and I would appreciate your honesty and answer it to the best of your knowledge. Could you please explain if there is, in fact, a PUMO system within the Old Everett High School, and this is due to public safety concerns?
No, there's currently not a Plimo-Vent system installed at the old Everett High School.
Okay, could you please explain any protocols that are used where there is no PUMA-VENT in place currently?
So the package that, and I had given one to Councilor Lee during, while we were just waiting to come up here. The package that I had handed out, if you look at the first page, it says Everett Fire Department policy. This policy was put in place, I want to say about 2.5 years ago. We used, prior to using this for our temporary housing of our Engine 1 and our Car 2, we used it for our Engine 2. You may remember when we had Hancock Street being renovated. So that's when we did all the work up there. We put out this policy at that time. We had put in a garage door opener at the manway going into the hallway, if you guys were ever up there. See, what we're doing is we're housing the truck in the old auto body when it was the high school. So the doorway at the top of the stairs, we have a door opener for the garage door. So if the guys get a call, they go out of the crew quarters, they walk down the hall, they hit that door and they open that. By the time they get down there, the door should be at least halfway open, I would think. They start the piece and then they roll out. This is the policy that you're seeing on that first page. This policy's been in effect when we were there for Engine 2, and now it still remains into effect. We did discuss early on when we did put our Engine 2 up there, was it effective to have a Plimo-Vent system installed up there? You'll see on the secondary page, or the subsequent pages of that, you'll see it's not fun reading, I'll warn you. It's about diesel filtration systems on the truck. Our Engine 1 and both our Engine 2 are the same piece. They're relatively new. This is the system they have on it. It cleans out some ungodly amount of that particulate. So we looked at it and said, could the money be spent, rather than spending it in a temporary station and temporary quarters, can we put together a policy that saves putting anywhere, and I know one of the questions are going to come up, what's it cost to put one in there? Could be anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000 to put a Plimo-Vent system in. So this is what we decided to do. We decided to put the policy in place. While Engine 2 was up there under the old Hancock renovation, we had a air quality test done. I've never seen that air quality test, but we've just recently now had another air quality test that we're waiting on results for. So believe me, when it says public safety and it says risks of our firefighters, and I don't mean to sound crass, but I take offense when people think that I don't take public safety or the safety of my men or the people that are in that building at any given time seriously. That's my paramount, my number one concern is the public, my men, and just being a human being. I wouldn't put people in danger like that. So that being said, I think I answered the question. We don't have one there. There's no plans to put one in there because of the cost and because, frankly, the need. And I think that when we get those results back of that air quality test, if they say anything different, then we'll go back to the drawing board. But what we're seeing up there is not a case where we need one of these in a temporary station.
Okay. So who starts up the truck? The firefighter, obviously, right?
The driver, yes, sir.
Right. So once you start that up, how long is the truck in the garage?
Well, if they're responding to a call, hopefully not long.
Not long.
Maybe 30 seconds.
30 seconds. And within that 30 seconds, it still emits those fumes. And you say that the DPF system that you have in those vehicles
Yep.
does not completely rid of the
particulate.
the harmful thing done.
No, I don't think, I think you would be hard pressed to say the Plymovent gets rid of 100% of that.
Right.
You know, so the way the Plymovent system works, for instance, it's a vacuum system that attaches, it's a vacuum hose system that attaches to the exhaust.
Right.
So, for instance, it's sucked onto there when the piece starts, the piece rolls out, it automatically disconnects, it goes back in. The guys are backing the truck back in, and they connect it to there. So they'll walk out and they'll meet it there. But most times, they're backing in and they're putting it on in there. So I would suggest that it's the same amount of time. You still have that human contact. Whereas it being connected completely outside and then being backed in, I don't know.
Chief, are you a resident of Everett?
No.
No. Okay. I don't know if you are aware, but now, are you aware that there's been cases of like signs of being like signs of getting sick because of the fumes, like sore throat and stuff like that?
When you say there's
from
signs-
the fighters?
My firefighters in that building, or just in general,
In
fire
general,
service?
and perhaps
Cancer
in
is
your
a
building
huge, in respiratory problems and cancers and all those types of things are huge in the fire service as a whole.
right.
But to also attribute it to the exhaust and not just fighting fires and all that, I don't have those numbers and that type of information.
Okay. Now, with this that you hand me, this package,
Yes.
all it is just compare the two DPS system, which one is cheaper, which one's more expensive, right? It only mention its functionality and how its performance goes. It doesn't really mention anything about safety to the men. And are you aware, sir, that there's a school upstairs?
Absolutely,
And
100%.
There's also a gym?
Yes, I am.
Now, with that DPF system, since you say it doesn't completely get rid of the particles and it does not exude the air to the outside, whereas a Puma vent system, it filter, then it throws the air outside, not the air. The air is no longer in the building.
Yes, sir.
But with this DPF system, it's still, the air is still in the building.
Okay.
And the DPF system, it says here that it's been refuted by some doctors that it's still a cancer-causing thing.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I don't think
What
there was a
is-
question in there.
Oh,
No,
so
I don't know,
what-
did I
Is
miss
that
a
a
question?
question?
No, that was just a statement.
Yeah. So
I'm
how
aware
how-
that I'm
how
aware
did
that
you-
there's a school, I'm aware that there's a gym, I'm aware that my firefighters are there every time. And what I would suggest is that we see what the air quality tests say. Rather than diffute this, the reason why I gave you this is because this is on the truck.
Right, I
This is
understand
on the
that.
truck.
And again, that thing does not put the air outside, it just filters it, and the air still lingers within the building.
So
Chief.
from the chair, do we have a date for when the quality test will come out?
It was, to be honest, Ms. Chairwoman, the It was supposed to be back on like Monday, but I think we had a couple different buildings done just on the general air quality. We have Facility Services, George Lane here with us. But we actually called them today, and they were hoping to get it back to us pretty soon. So it's usually a quick turnaround.
Awesome, thank you. And would you be able to submit it back to the council when you get the
Absolutely.
results? Awesome.
Yeah, I'll share that with everybody.
Thank you so much. Councilor Lee, do you have any questions for the representatives of the
Yeah.
union? Any more questions for the chief?
Did you know that besides inflicting harm from the crews, the fire station is in violation of OSHA as well?
I'm sorry, are you asking the chief?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, do you have that violation? Do you have like an OSHA statement or something I could refer to that, or is that just a generalization of that?
I'm pretty sure one of the union rep can say something. No,
Would,
you don't have anything, but
go ahead.
it is because OSHA they require fresh air and the Puma system in there in every fire station.
I would argue that.
Okay, and you say it costs us $12,000 to
Yes.
$20,000 to install one of those.
Yeah.
And I have mentioned before there are children in there, and we cannot. I repeat, we cannot put a price on the lives of children. Even that 30 seconds in there does a lot of damage. Just, I mean, not only to the children, but the people to the gym and our brothers in the union here. And our only remedy is the Puma vent system. That thing that is installed, that DPS thing that you have installed in the truck does not mitigate the air at all. It does not completely get rid of that harm. So if I can, I ask for a Puma vent to put in. I mean, to make things right for our union workers, for everybody. I mean, I understand you don't live in Everett, so
You know what? Could I speak? Could I speak on this?
Go right ahead,
please?
chief.
Number one, I take extreme offense to what Councilor Lee just said to me. That whole line of, it wasn't even a questioning, it was a statement, that I'm going to put in danger the people in this city, especially children, and then base it on the fact that I don't live here? I grew up here. My family goes back generations in this city. And to think that anybody in this room, any one of my brothers, because we don't have an address in this city, do a less job, I suggest he goes back. Because again, I'm not going to go tit for tat with this gentleman. He got this report 3 minutes ago from me. I got these questions from him last week, none of which that he's asking now are valid. About children, about danger, please, this is a headhunt. That's what this is. And when we get this back, we'll see. When we get the air quality back. You guys want to put a Plimo vent in a temporary station and waste that money? Do you think I would ever, Councilor Marchese, I ask any of you councilors, have I ever put anybody in danger? I take extreme offense, and I agree with Councilor Hanlon. I've never seen somebody get up here and put me on the spot like this. In this line of questioning, that he's allowed to just shoot questions and not through the chair? This is a joke.
So
A joke.
Councilor
Madam
McLaughlin
Chairwoman,
has.
I take offense to our chief calling our committee a joke. I take offense to that.
No, I didn't say that. I
So-
said this line
so-
of questioning is a joke,
Okay,
Councilor.
but you just said the way it's being run is a joke.
Absolutely.
So that's calling our committee a joke, chief, and I take offense to that as a
Okay.
member of this committee.
Well
So-
noted.
Thank you, I appreciate that, and I will say that you will not put anybody in danger. I've known you a long time, and I fully support your statement on that. That being said, I invited Councilor Lee here as a guest to our committee so that he could, my question to you is, Councilor, did you submit these questions to the administration 7 days prior to coming here this evening?
yes.
So the
Yeah.
chief has had these questions 7 days in advance, so chief.
About my residency? No.
But chief, then that's the problem, chief, because things come up throughout a discussion. And-
What's my residency have to do, Councilor McLaughlin?
Well,
What's
chief-
my residency
well,
have to do?
Chief. we
With
can-
the air
chief-
quality in a temporary
Chief, you-
station.
you've
I live in
come- you've-
Peabody, by the way.
Chief, you've come here a little tonight, a little different than I've seen you in the past, so.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so I just want to say that it's a little bit of a different tone. That being said, if you received the questions in 7 days in advance notice, then you were given due process to be able to answer the questions that Council Lee has
There's
asked.
4 questions here. I'm going to read them off, and I'll answer every one of them. Does that sound good?
But let me say
Absolutely.
this, that I find it a little disturbing that we're having such a serious discussion, and to quite frankly, and I appreciate the information, but I'm just receiving it for the first time. So there's no way for me to be able to dissect these two pamphlets and these
Yep.
two packets, and to be able to understand the difference between the two systems.
Yeah.
And to be able to understand, I think we can all agree that we don't want to put one firefighter's life in jeopardy or in danger. And if we are doing such, then quite frankly, if it's $12,000, $200,000, or $1 million, we can't spend enough money to not make sure that we put
Absolutely.
anybody's life in jeopardy. And Councilor Lee is right that there are other occupants of the old Everett High School that have students and gym individuals in there. So I think this is a serious matter that, quite frankly, I'm kind of caught off guard here because I didn't have time to read these two pamphlets and to understand what Councilor Lee is asking. But I will say that he has asked a lot of valid questions here this evening, and has asked a lot of questions about the safety of our firefighters. If this had been the first time around, but if we had it previously before Hancock Street, now we're using it for this one, will we continue to use it for even a satellite station or a substation or anything else after Broadway is, after...
I can't speak to that, I wouldn't.
Exactly. So, Chief, maybe it is reasonable that we look at, if we're going to house one piece of equipment up at the old Everett High School, that maybe we do make this type of an investment. You know, we have a ton of new money coming into the city of Everett. Maybe there is something that we should look at, that we house a piece of equipment up there and we spend the money to make it safe for everyone involved. I think it's a valid point. I just don't think we have enough time right now to be able to dissect all of this. And I do want to hear from the union members, and I do want to hear their take on this. But if it is putting people's lives in jeopardy, I'm willing to spend $1 million. And I think, Chief, you will agree that we
Absolutely.
don't want to jeopardize anybody. And you have wholeheartedly proven that as a firefighter and the chief.
Thank you, Council.
Councilor McLaughlin, do you have any more questions?
So my question is, can we hear from the union members? And then I do have questions on this. But I just want to make sure
Okay.
that we can kind of settle this conversation
So,
down a little bit and come back to
Councilor
being...
Hanlon and Marchese, they have questions too. How do we want to proceed? Do you want to ask your questions first to the members, or?
So I'd like to hear from them and allow them
All right.
to come in, and then we
Would you like to speak
They
on
have
it?
questions for the chief, then by all means, they can go ahead.
So, Councilor
First.
Hanlon?
Obviously,
No, honestly, my question was already answered, the chief explained that. So
Proceed.
I'm going to ask again, but I might go first, then I'll go back to after him. I don't want to go out of time.
All right. Councilor Marchese, please.
So Chief, this is for the new station is what we're talking about here, not the high school station, right? Like, 'cause I'm getting a
Council,
little...
right now, we moved the pieces out of Central while we
Central and up there,
finished the
yes.
renovation.
Like
We moved
prior
our ladder
before it was
truck
Hancock.
to Hancock,
Yep,
and then we moved our engine one in our deputy's car
Yep.
up to the high school.
and that's what's stored inside?
Yes, they're stored
Yep.
inside.
No, but prior to that, when there was a school there, probably was about 20, 30 cars in there running all at once.
I'm a product of Everett Vocational,
All
so
right,
you're
so,
seeing
I
it.
mean, you know,
You're seeing the results of that.
And I'm sure the councilor's intentions are all, he's all right, and he's probably just thinking the outright safety for everybody there.
Yes.
And if it's not going to be, I mean, I wouldn't spend $1 million. You know, I mean, if the exhaust is $20,000, I mean, you know, whatever it takes. If the people that are the firemen who know the safety, know it's safe for their employees, their brothers here, they're not going to endanger the people upstairs or anybody. That's my concern right there. So to think that would happen, that's farthestly from my, thought. But I'm trying to feel which station we're talking about. Now
Yeah.
I know it's
Yeah.
that one. But, like I said, if it's, you decide you need it, we'll vote it.
And you know what? You've always been supportive of that.
Sure.
If I've come up and I've needed something, and I felt I needed something, especially when it comes to the safety of the men and the public, you have never balked at that, and I don't expect it that way.
I mean, we still have a test. We'll get the test. A lot of questions are very valid, Counselor. But like, I kind of know where you're going on certain things, but there's no chance of that ever happening with this group of guys here. And like you said, their intentions are to provide a safe city for all of us, and that's their job, and they've all been here a lot more than 10, 20 years, a lot of them. And so their intentions are good, and if there's an issue with the test, I agree with you, we'll do something to, eliminate it. If it comes,
Absolutely.
so that's all I have to say.
Back to Councilor Hanlon.
Yes, thank you. And I've been listening to a lot, with this hearing here, and I'm sure that Jimmy has some valid reasons, I'm sorry, Councilor Lee has some valid reasons, excuse me, for being here and asking these questions. I need to know, the system that we're talking about, what is it collecting? Is it carbon monoxide?
Yeah, so it's just the particulates from an engine. So anything that would normally come out of like a diesel exhaust
Yeah,
system
okay.
is put through, it literally looks like a vacuum. If you ever get your car inspected,
I've seen the other places.
and they put a
Yes,
hose
yes,
in the back of
yeah,
your exhaust and they pump it outside, this is a little bit more because it's hooked to a fan and it pumps out and it goes to a
Okay,
filtration system.
so I don't know who can answer this question, but what I'm going to be looking for is that what illnesses can you get from, other than dying, from breathing those fumes?
It
Is
could be
headaches,
anything. I
throwing
think the union might have some stuff on that. but-
Okay,
Sure. I know Scott can absolutely speak to it. There's a lot of issues that can come up with in the stomach in terms of tumors. I know maybe you want to elaborate on it, Scott, a little bit more, speaking firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, diesel fuel.
this is what could happen, right?
Yes, this
Okay.
was what could happen. Studies have linked it to cardiovascular disease, lung cancer, lung disease, esophageal cancer, and myself being a bladder cancer survivor and still receiving treatment currently, it's been known to cause bladder cancer. So, to me, it seems like a no-brainer that we put the system in. I mean, it's not gonna hurt to have the system in there, and if it costs $12,000 to $20,000, it's not like we're gonna take it and throw it away when we move. We could take it down, use it for spare parts if something breaks down on the other Plymouth vent system. And just to be clear, I don't think the chief would ever put anybody in harm's way purposely, but I think, of course, I'm sure money is an object, and we don't know what the air quality study said. And I had a question about the study myself was, did they do the study with the vehicles running, or was with the vehicles off, or both? I don't know who could answer that question. I would assume, Chief, would you know that answer?
No, I wasn't present there.
Or George, could you answer that?
Yeah, we did the system just as the chief described it. We opened the door first, fireman walked down the ramp, started the engine, and we ran the test for 5 minutes, and the engine was shut off in the matter of time that was, I would say it would have taken to get everybody in the engine and out. So I think he ran it probably around 30 seconds. I don't know if that's an accurate time for it to happen, but that's, I don't know. I'm not a fireman. I will say, though, that we're probably your closest neighbors up there. We are the facility group. We have 17 people that work on the other side of your door, pretty much, and I feel the same way the chief does. I would never put my guys in danger, and if I thought something was going on, I would bring it to the chief and say, you know, we got to do something about this. So we ran the air quality test, and this is not the first one. This is our second air quality test we've done. We did it when the other department was there. It was handed to HR, and obviously if the results of that were all taken a look at, and they determined at that time that they weren't going to go with the prime event, it wasn't dangerous. We also did air quality testing upstairs in the school system, in the school area. We did not do the gym, but to be honest with you, we never received reports, because I maintain the gym and the school. We haven't had reports of anybody smelling any type of an exhaust, but I get it, particulates are a different matter.
Yes.
Those are particles, and they could float around the air, but with the doors closed and everything, I don't know if you're gonna reach the far end of that building where the school actually is. And, yeah,
Well,
if
nobody
I
knows
thought
that.
it would, I would, and if I think it would, and when the test comes back, like you say, we'll know if it is getting into that area. And, yeah, I know for a
Now,
fact, I know
a
the
second
chief,
thing
he
is,
would.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were done. Second thing is, we talk about opening the doors and letting the men get on and the doors open. Well, it's the same way at Central Station, and it's the same way at Hancock Street Station, but we have a Plymouth vent system there.
Right.
So to me, it's the same thing. What's the difference? And if we can protect our members, and I'm sure the chief, that's his utmost importance, if we can protect the members, even if it's a temporary installment, how is that hurting anybody? That's just my opinion. I don't know what the other guys have to say. And as the chief said, that we do have that DEF fluid assistance and the particulates on engine 1 and engine 2 that helps remove some of that stuff, even if we didn't have a system. But we do have our other pieces that don't have that. The engines were built long before that, such as our engine 2, our old engine 2, which is now engine 4, that we're using now for probably 2 to 3 weeks, because engine 1 needs to be serviced. And that doesn't have any of that stuff to help at all. So now you're getting just pure diesel in there.
Excuse me.
Just,
I'm still in the middle of my question.
oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to feel if it's
No.
habit, or do you Are you asking for it? Well, I'm trying to find out.
We don't have it currently in the temporary station. We would like to have it.
Oh, okay. That's what, I didn't know it was.
As a union, as you know, as a union member, we would like to have it.
And I believe Seth was trying to answer the question too. Sorry, go ahead.
The other part of my question was that, that's what those things, that fumes could possibly do. And do we have any information of if anybody has, contacted any of those problems because of the fumes that are in the station? And other than yours, do you think yours was from the fire department?
Well, it's linked to it. I mean, there's no way to prove it 100%, but it's under the assumption that they have a certain list of cancers that you're going to get by stuff that you do on your job. And those cancers that I listed are just the ones that I know that do have a link to diesel fuel and particulates and all that business.
Okay, I think that's good. Thank you. Okay.
Would you like to add something?
Thank you. So the reason that we appreciate you allowing us to be here today, being invited up, we recently just formed our legislative committee within the executive board in the local 143 for reasons just like this, open dialogue to discuss. One of the biggest pieces for us, and I've mentioned to you before, is education. A lot of what we do in the fire service is a little reactive, but we're trying to be proactive. It's changing rapidly. We want to be ahead of the curve. I absolutely agree with the chief. He would not put us in harm's way. And I've only been here 5 years on the department, but, I know for a fact he would never do that. What we're trying to do is a preventative, not maintenance, but preventative for the what-ifs. All too often in our job, it's a reactive. We're trying to be proactive, try to do these right things, and I think Scott made a great point. We can take this and bring it to, somewhere else if we need to, or whatever the case is. It won't go to waste. We know that for sure. But I think the air quality samples will be paramount to making a decision going further with this. Scott mentioned we have an older piece that's in service of Frontline Engine 1 right now, and I believe Captain Hurley has something that he might be able to speak on as well. That he just did a quick little. It's not a scientific study by any stretch of the means, but it just kind of goes to show you what we may be dealing with. We don't know. It may be 5 years down the line, 10 years, 20. Nobody knows. So, like I said, it's all preventative. We're just trying to help ourselves at this point. If I may have.
Sure. Before we move to Captain Hurley, do you have any more questions, Councilor Halen? Do you have any more questions of your question before we? Okay, so go right ahead, Captain.
Okay. I think I'm supposed to introduce myself. Captain Hurley, Everfire. I work on Engine 1. I'm not a scientist. I just did a quick little study just to check out, because I know it's a hot button issue. I know the Plymouth event's a big deal to a lot of guys, and it makes sense that it is. When I started, we didn't have Plymouth events, same as the chief. Scott was on for a little while too. Before we had Plymouth events, and you remember the days when you go upstairs and you run your finger on something, you get a little sooty. It was a little dirty, it was a little gross. So we got the Plymouth events, it scrubbed the air. For many years we had to deal with it, then we got the Plymouth event system. Now we're in the temporary quarters. Unfortunately, we don't know how long we're going to be in the temporary quarters, so we all just want to come to an understanding. Now I get with the opening the door and all that, and I remember the SOP coming out, but I just wanted to see how bad it really was when the spare piece is in service. So, just as my own little scientific study, I took a little cravat, I tied it around the exhaust, and we started it and ran it for about 10 seconds. Now, I'm not sure if anybody could see where the hole was for the exhaust. And I know it might not look that good from here, but I'll hand it around, and it doesn't smell that good. But a lot comes out.
I can see it pretty good.
And that's only 10 seconds?
You know what I mean? And that's about 10 seconds of him starting it up and pulling out of the station. And then we shut it off, took it off, he backed back in. That's what that is. So, again, I get it. You know what I mean? It's $12,000 to $20,000. It's probably, it's in the times that we're living in right now, with spending the money on a temporary station, I understand why nobody would want to do it, to invest that kind of money, but, we live there, we work there, who knows how long it's going to end up being, when's Central going to be done, who knows. It would be nice to not have to worry about it. But again, it's not the end of the world, like you said. Your guys work there too. There's trucks going in and out of there all day, all the time anyways, and that's fine. I don't like the way it smells when we start up the piece and we drive it around. That's just me. But I think if we work together, we can come up with a solution for this, that's all. But like I said, I just did I did a scientific study that was probably not up to par. My daughter would probably kick my butt for, doing such a weak study, but I just wanted to see what it looked like, and that's what we got, so.
Council McLaughlin?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Madam Chairwoman, I have a couple of questions. One is, Chief, we have this system in the other fire stations.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? So what would harm by putting this in? And especially if we can dismantle it and take it to the other 3 fire stations and be able to use it as spare parts or if something breaks down.
It's not a case of harm, it's a case of where we're gonna spend this amount of money when we could be putting that into the station that they would be permanently at. And what we did was, when we first went up there on the Engine 2 at the Hancock Street Station, and we ran those studies and those air quality tests, and nothing came back, we said, okay, we don't need to do this.
So then
And
why do
spend
we
that
need to
money.
do it in any station at that point? If we
Because
don't need to
it's,
do it here, then we shouldn't, right? I mean, apples to apples, if we don't need it, we don't need it, or we do
No,
need it.
in the same sense, the trucks, and like Scott had alluded to, the trucks as they come out now and under the federal EPA guidelines are pushing cleaner exhaust. Older trucks don't do that. So we got this system. We used to have an onboard filtration system, then we went to the Primovent system maybe 10 years ago because we still had those older trucks. So we had those systems in there as the older trucks were there. As the newer trucks came, I mean, and we still, ladder 1 is still a 1995, it's our frontline piece. So we're still running some old trucks, and our spare piece, which my brother said, engine 4 regularly runs if we have a piece out of service, that's our spare piece. So we have them in there for that reason.
I mean, even if that case, if it is able to be dismantled and be able to move.
I'm not sure that
But I'm
that
saying,
is the
if-
case. I
If
mean,
that's the case, then we should have done this, and then a week before we open Central, or 10 days before we open
Yeah.
Central, just move it from Hancock Street down to Central.
Yeah.
And then you had covered both locations with the same $12,000 to $20,000 system.
Yeah,
that
that's
we-
something, that's something we probably could have looked at, but again, like I said,
Right.
we did the air quality testing, we looked at those types of options. We looked at an option of putting that in when George's crew first built out the crew quarters at the temporary high school. We looked into all that. And what we did was, we looked and said, is it worthwhile to put something like this in? The spare parts and things, these, I don't know, can you interchange them and stuff? I'm sure you can, if you take a hose off of
Sure.
one and put it on the other.
But even
Absolutely.
if you moved it from Hancock to Broadway a week
Yeah,
before it
we're not
opens.
replacing the Primovent system as part of the renovation down there, so it that wouldn't be a case where we would take that off and then put it
Okay.
into another place. We have those current systems in place now.
So, and it stayed in place at Central during the construction of
Exactly, so we
Central?
actually call the contractor, they come out, they take the hoses down, and they do everything, and then before we reopen, they'll come in, they'll switch out the filtration system, because obviously debris gets in there, and then they'll do it all over that way.
Okay, I mean, just look, I thought Captain Hurley brought his dinner with him in the container, but looking at that piece
You don't
and
wanna eat
seeing
that.
that there's that much,
That's the first time I'm seeing it, I was unaware of any unofficial test, that's something I haven't
you know,
seen. I
that
had
much
no idea. I saw Will yesterday. He didn't mention that to me, so.
chemical on that. It does, and I do know, because I was an auto tech student at Everett High School during my years of 2000, 2004, and I do know that we weren't allowed to shut the door, period, until the car was in the garage and it was shut off.
Yeah.
And then we were allowed to shut the overhead door.
And look
once
how
it-
good you and I came out.
I appreciate it, Captain.
Yeah.
Chief, excuse me, I'm sorry. The question, there's a couple of questions that I have. One is, can we get the study from the first air quality test? And is that relatively available?
Yeah,
information?
if I had access to it, everybody would have access to it here. Like George said, he had turned it into HR back then, so we didn't hear anything back on the negative side
So
of it.
do we know
I
if
don't
it's
have it.
filed somewhere, if it's,
I'm not sure. But what I can tell you is that we completely plan on sharing the air quality test that we had done last week with you folks. and we'll
And
make
then
it ready.
If you're able to send it to the chair, then I'll share with the committee. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Second thing is that I would think that the committee should actually go visit the site and do a tour of the facility and understand firsthand what we're talking about. So that we
Absolutely.
can get a firsthand. And Chief, a couple of years ago, you brought me through the
Yeah.
Hancock Street,
Yeah.
excuse me, the old Everett High School
Yeah.
site, and you did show me that. But I'd
Absolutely.
like to go back there and I'd like to visit it.
Anytime you guys want.
And be able to
Absolutely.
see it firsthand.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that we try to make that a visit in the near future to be
Sure.
able to see it. Because if Mr. Lane also has vehicles in the building and they're adding to, there could be even a greater, but there's going to be a long-term need because he's not leaving the building.
Yeah.
You guys will go back to Central Station, but his men aren't leaving the building anytime in the near future, at least as far as I know. So I do think that there is a validation of getting the system in place, and quite frankly, as soon as possible, to be honest with you. And I think 20,000, I don't think is going to break the bank at this point. And I think safety of our men,
Yeah.
and it is all of our first priorities. And I think that we should be talking with the administration immediately to say, how do we go forward to be able to put this system in place?
So, let me clarify on the $12,000 to $20,000 statement I made. That was one of Councilor Lee's questions, is how much does it cost? At no time would I put any amount of money over public safety. And I think that's been clear. In the 3.5 years that I was provisional chief, we've renovated 2 stations, Hancock and now Central. And that was one of my primary goals in talking with the administration about investing back into our infrastructure. They don't have to be pretty buildings, they just have to be safe and clean buildings. And that's why we did it. 20 years ago, they renovated Ferry Street Fire Station. The men were put down in a basement of 911, in an unfinished basement. So that's where we've come in 20 years. So we take it very seriously, the type of public safety facilities we want. I think they show our pride in our men, and we also want to make sure that our men have the best in the cleanest, in the healthiest places. They spend 2/3 of their life living there. It's not a go home at 5 type of job. So we take that very seriously. But again, just if I can close out with saying that when I said it was $12,000 to $20,000, that's the quote I got from the company. But that in no way was a keystone to why I didn't install this, or we didn't make a decision to install it. So I don't want that to get into the mix.
Councilor Marchese has a quick question.
Just finish up there. First of all, I'd thank Councilor Lee for bringing it to my knowledge, because I didn't know this existed. So I thank you for bringing it up to the front. Like I said, if it's needed, you won't have a problem here. So that, just leave it like that. And Councilor, the question was good, but it was sometimes a little different.
Little
But you were
aggressive.
right, but you brought it to the attention here, which I never knew existed. I knew there was some kind of system. I didn't know what the even name of it was until you did it. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. And it's like public safety is 100% with us. Whatever the price is, we'll willing to work. If it means, who knows how long, that does look like it's moving along too good down there.
They're saying mid-April now.
Yeah.
We'll
And
see.
almost glue there. Wait for the windows to go on top.
I mean, honestly, Chief,
Thank you.
I by no means trying to offend you or denigrate you in any way. That was just my public concerns. I mean, our firefighters, they put their lives on the line every single day. And the least we can do is to reciprocate by just accommodating to their wishes and put a Puma vent in there for them. I mean, 12,000 to 20,000, that's nothing, right? We got CIP funds for it, or generous fund. I mean, that can prevent later harm and injury later on, which might cost millions, if not thousands of dollars.
So from the chair, the fire department actually has their own budget, so it doesn't come from ours. But a question for you, Chief, do we have a specific line item dedicated to the health and safety of our firefighters?
No. So we wouldn't have, if something like that came out, for a building maintenance project or any large-scale things like that, or apparatus, we'd either come on a budget line item, or we would look for capital improvement. $20,000 probably wouldn't reach the threshold for capital improvement, but we would look for a line item to add something like that. But we don't normally carry, George's department handles the maintenance of the place, so we don't normally have a line item for building maintenance and that type of equipment.
Thank you. And Council Hanlon, do you have a question?
We moved up there, I think, in November? October. I'm hoping April. Yeah. Last week it was March. This week it was April. So. One vehicle. Right now, we keep our deputy's car, which is the Suburban that you see, or the Expedition that you see driving around, and we have the engine up there. So what we did as part of a precaution with this, I moved the deputy's car outside, once we got alert that people were concerned about that again, so we had them keep that outside. We still house the truck, just because the amount of equipment on it. There's not locks on it and things like that. There's water in it, cold weather. We don't really want it outside. One vehicle, sir. We have multiple. Yeah. So at Central Station we have three systems. At Ferry we have 2, and at Hancock we have 2. Yes, sir. No. So, yeah, our mechanic does all his work down the city yards.
Oh, Council, I'm sorry, your microphone is off.
All right, I'll ask them all over again. No, I won't. So how long does it take to install this system?
I'm not sure. It's done by a private company called the Air Cleaning Specialist. They're like the franchisee of the Plymouth vent system.
I don't understand. I think it's that hose that goes up over the...
It is.
that
So
what we're
if you
talking
drive
about?
by the station and you look in, you'll see a yellow hose connected to all the trucks.
Right.
And if you drive down like Corey Street and you look to the side of the Corey Street building at Central Station, it looks like a restaurant-type ventilation system.
Okay, is there any filter on that line, or is that just a direct out?
No, there is a filtration system. So it vacuums up into like a box, and that's a filtered box, and then the air that goes outside is exhausted up.
And what happens to that box? I mean, is it ever emptied? I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's
Is it
periodically. So
charcoal or-
we enter an agreement with the company, and they come and, depending on frequency, they come and change the filtration.
Okay. Okay, can I keep this? Sure. Okay, all right. And, so how long to install, and how much in the other stations? Okay.
I don't think it would be
That's all.
2 months,
That's
but
all. But I need to talk to you before the meeting,
Any,
after the meeting, okay?
go ahead, Seth.
Maybe just a quick question that kind of popped in my head. We have 3 Plymouth vents down at Central Station. Yeah, I mean, work smarter, not harder. Is there potential of bringing the ventilation system from, maybe we can get an idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
I don't know, I could look
Just
into
not-
something like that. If the air quality test doesn't come back
Right.
favorably, we could also look at that.
Council McLaughlin.
So, Madam Chairwoman, I definitely don't want to send this back out. I would like to keep this in because I think we need to see the air quality test results. I think we need to visit the facility itself, and then we need to make a decision on where we're going to go with this.
motion right here?
So, but I would, in the meantime, ask the chief if he could look at the feasibility of moving one of the, because I was going to ask that same question.
Sure, I can look at
If we
that.
could move one over to the Hancock Street temporary station for now. Because again, anything we can do to keep our event safe is top priority to all of us in this room. So I would ask, and Chief, you can just shoot us back an email through Madam Chairwoman Mons to give us that answer. And kind of just keep this dialogue open, but I would ask that we refer this to the meeting in March, government operation, public safety, public service meeting in March, and in the meantime, we'll get the quality air test back. I would request from the administration, if there is still the previous air quality test, that they submit that to us as well, and that the chief sets up a tour of the facility with public safety. Mr. Burley, we can take that tour, correct? You guys, your members used to take the tours
can.
down at the Monsanto
Yes.
chemical plant. But we can do that as committee, correct? We can do that as,
We're not 6.
okay, so there's no open meeting law that would violate or anything by 4 of us. So then I would ask the chief that we can coordinate that the 4 of us can meet to take a tour of the facility as the public safety committee, and that we do that as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
And I'd put that all in a form of a motion. If you need me to repeat that.
Is that okay with the sponsor?
Yeah, sure.
All right, do we have a second?
Second?
And could you repeat that again? I'm sorry, Mike McLaughlin.
Sure, Madam Chairwoman. Madam Chairwoman, I'm requesting the previous air quality test that was done when the building was first used for the renovation of Hancock Street. I'm requesting the new study, once that's released, to be submitted to us. I'm requesting the tour to be set up through the chief with the Public Safety Committee in conjunction with Councilor Lee. I'm also requesting that the chief look into the feasibility of moving one of the systems from the Central Fire Station up to Hancock Street and temporarily. And I think that is all that I think we need until the March meeting, until we make a decision whether or not we should ask the administration to look favorably upon
Second.
doing this.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Can we make a motion to excuse our guests?
Hey, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night. The next item. Thank you, Counselor. So item number 5.
All right, item number 5. This is a resolution by Councilor Curly Hadrian to request the mayor and the staff explain how the Everett Citizens Foundation members were selected, and if everyone on the committee's input was valued, did every member on the committee have a vote on where the $150,000 should be allocated?
So Councilor Adrian is not in the audience, but I do see Mr. Latanzi patiently waiting. Thank you so much from the mayor's office. Can we make a motion to invite the guests?
Second?
Thank you. Please. Oh. So Councilor Adrian did submit her questions, and I believe she submitted them to you in advance as well. Could you please just state your name for the record?
Matt Latanzi, Assistant City Solicitor, and I was also the staff support to the Everett Citizens Foundation.
Thank you,
Can I ask a
Councilor
quick question
Marchese.
before we start? What is this? What foundation is this?
The Everett Citizens Foundation it's a nonprofit foundation founded in the 2013 host community agreement between Wynn Corporation and Mayor Carla DiMaria. They are given $250,000 a year from Encore, or
Yep.
from Wynn Corporation, to be doled out to organizations around the city.
And this was part of it tonight, I believe, right?
It was, yes. Our first round funding was granted tonight. That was the $150,000 that's alluded to here.
Yep.
We still have a second round for this first inaugural year, where the applications are due May 17th and a decision will be pending.
All right, thank you. Now I'm up to
Absolutely.
date. I don't know what you need for questions. Go ahead.
Alrighty. Do you want to say anything first before we ask the first question, or?
No, by all means.
Okay, so the first question submitted to the chair is, can you explain the details and provide documentation of the contract between the foundation and the casino?
Yep, so the contract that we have here is the host community agreement. Section 7, Community Development, is the section title. Subsection title, Everett Citizens Foundation. I can read it to you if you'd like. Yeah, I could send you a copy. It's the host community agreement. It's online on the website, on the city's website.
Could you just quickly summarize it for the people at home if they're hearing about this for the first time?
Sure thing. So I can read it. It's only 2 paragraphs, and I read relatively quickly. Upon the Commission's awarding of a Category 1 license to Wynn and Wynn commencing construction of the project, Wynn agrees to fund an Everett Citizens Foundation, hereby foundation, that will be in charge of supporting and promoting local groups, associations, and programs with important city initiatives. The foundation shall consist of 7 members, 4 of whom shall be appointed by the mayor, 1 of whom shall be appointed by the city's state representative, 1 of whom shall be appointed by the city's state senator, and 1 of whom shall be appointed by the city council. WIN shall fund the foundation with an annual payment of $250,000, the first such payment to be made on the date the payments under Section 1B commence, and continue on each anniversary thereof for as long as WIN or any parent, subsidiary, or related entity owns, controls, or operates a commercial gaming facility at the project site, and shall increase by 2.5% per annum.
Thank you so much. So the second question, I think you kind of covered it, is how were the members of the ECF selected, and what was the process? So you did state that. Could you repeat that again?
As I alluded to, the 7 members are chosen, 4 from the mayor, 1 from the rep, 1 from the senator, and 1 from the council. What is important to note, though, is that this process is a little bit different than a typical multi-member body, in the sense that this is not a strictly municipal board. So whereas most members are sworn in by the council and all that stuff, this is different than that because this is it's a contract between a private organization and the city. So it's just a separate board. It's a little different. I spoke with the clerk about that a few days ago, and he confirmed that it's a different type of board. It's not the typical multi-member body board that you'll see in the administrative code.
Okay, and do you guys want me to ask all the questions first, or do you want to ask questions in between the questions?
I mean, what is the main question
So
that's
we
here?
have 5 questions, and they're all different, and I'm sure we're going to have our own questions as well. So do you want me to go over all the questions first? Okay. All right, so question number 3, and do you have the questions, Councilor Hanlon? You don't, right?
I just had one quick question.
So we're currently reading the sponsor's question
It is.
to...
I'm going to ask the question by that here.
Okay, so I guess Councilor Hanlon.
Tonight down at the Bavarian Room, was that any part of this?
It is.
Yes.
Oh, that's what it was?
Yes. Yeah, the first round. So the $250,000 is split between 2 rounds. The $150,000 that first round was doled out today.
And that's the Everett Citizens Foundation? that
That's
we're calling
correct.
that? That's the whole name of everything?
They are the body who gives out these grants.
Okay. I didn't know that was it. I went to that, is this the first time it was done, or was it done before?
No, this is the first time.
Oh, well, I said, I got invited to it, so I wanted to go, but I said...
It went pretty well, right?
I said, how come they never invited me before?
That's the first time.
Okay,
So
all right, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I know. No, Mr. Latanzi just gave us a summary and a description of what the Citizens Foundation is. So question number 3 is, was each committee member's opinion valued? Wait, sorry about that. Excuse me. And in other words, did each committee member get a list of applicants and have input on who got the money and how much? If not, what was the process? And did each member of the committee have a vote as to how the $150,000 grant was allocated? If not, why not?
So yes, each director was given the full packet of 35 applications. The merits of the applicants were discussed over the course of multiple meetings, and questions could be submitted to me for clarification purposes. What I mean by clarification is that a question about an application would be sent to me, and I would reach out to the applicant to receive clarification on that question. Further, each member was entitled to vote on how the money was to be allocated, and each member was entitled to score each application. The grant amounts are based off of an average score of whoever scored it. So I have an Excel spreadsheet of, so there's a 14 score is the perfect score. We have 7 separate questions where you could grade from 2 to 0, 2 being the best, 0 being the worst. And a 14 would be the highest. I took all the averages of each member that did submit a vote on each applicant, did an average, and then compared them to everything else. But I do have a spreadsheet that breaks that down. I can submit that to the committee if you'd like.
Thank you, yes.
All right, so the next question I'm sorry. Do you want me to ask all 5 questions and then we ask her questions? All right. So we'll cover all of Councilor Adrian's questions, and then we'll ask her additional questions. So the question number 4 is, were all the meetings open to the public, including the voting process? If so, was it filmed or notes taken? If so, can you provide documentation?
Yep. So as I alluded to earlier, where this is kind of it's a separate type of board. It's a board or a commission that, this city, there aren't many of them, if any. In speaking with the clerk, he said that this is the first one, where it is between a private organization and the city, so it's not an administrative code function. So this body did actually accept a motion to be subject to open meeting law and public meeting law. It was a voluntary measure, but they did vote to subject themselves to that. And that happened in their second meeting on May 2nd, 2019. So yes, it was open to the public as such. Our doors were open. We would post the agenda on the city website. Our minutes were also put on the city website.
All right, final question number 5. What's the second round process? Or what, I believe it's like when is the second round?
Yep, so the applications are actually open now, and applications are due on March 17th, 2020. The applications can be found online on the city's website. They're also available for physical pickup. Currently, they're in the mayor's office, but I do plan on distributing them to the libraries, to the police, the fire, and anywhere else that someone has a suggestion. There will be a post on our social media in the coming days, as well as an announcement in the local papers, likely within the next week. And the second round will be utilizing the same application and grading rubric that we decided on using on the first round. And just important to note, if any amount was given in that first round, then that applicant is not able to apply for that second round funding.
Okay, Councilor Hanlon.
A quick question. Because I was at the meeting tonight, and I didn't really know what was going on with it, but you had just mentioned that you score all the applicants and 14 is the highest score.
That's correct.
Just a hypothetical question. What happens if they all score 14? How do you separate the money?
Well, that would be up to the board. I am a non-voting member.
Okay.
I simply sit there as staff support. If they all were to get 14, then I would say it would be evenly split amongst all applicants, the remaining money that we have.
Well, some of them, there is a difference, because some of them have, and I'm just guessing at this, they have 20 people that they represent or that they work for. Some of them have 800. So there is a difference, and I just wonder if that was taken into consideration.
It was. So, you'll see when I do send out this scoring rubric and the final votes on the scoring. For example, a 14 and a 13.2 for an average. Those were both able to get $10,000 because that's, after we graded everything, we looked over it, and then we decided on how we would move forward with funding. And then, I don't know if anyone here is a math person, but I really like math. So if it was above an 11, so an 11.2 to 13, I did the remaining monies left over after allocating the $10,000 to each person who got over a 13. And it broke down to each point being worth $341.99. So that's how, when you were sitting in there, you kind of saw some numbers where there were 25 cents at the end of them. That's how it worked out.
I saw that the first group of people that would receive the awards, they all got the same amount of money.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of rounding. But 11.2, there were 3 different organizations that scored an 11.2. Right. At 11.5, 12.2, and then it runs the gamut.
No, I thought that everybody was going to get that amount of money.
Oh, okay.
And then when the next person came in and got like 4,000 something, they were 3,000, they got 4,000. I said, there's a change here, and why is it changed? I was kind of curious as to why it changed, and why some got 10,000, and why some got 3,000. That's what I was wondering about, so someday maybe I can sit down and you can explain.
Absolutely. Yeah, and maybe when I provide this, these scorings, so the first one is just, it's everyone's score, everyone who submitted a score, and you'll see differences in the amount of people who actually scored each application. For one example I can think of off the top of my head is Tucker Fiorentino sits on that board as a voting member. He is also a member of the Kiwanis Club who was an applicant. He recused himself and did not vote. So when you see the scores and you say, wait, why is there 4 on this one and 6 on this one? There were reasons for them.
I've been to a lot of, in my years being on the council, I've been to a lot of committee meetings, a lot of council meetings, a lot of all other kinds of meetings. And the one thing that was unusual tonight, that room was packed, is that everybody was happy. No sour faces in the crowd, everybody was happy. So it was a good job, however that started and everything. I'm glad to see it worked out, and it was really wonderful.
Thank you.
So I actually wanted to.
Relay that to the people that do it, you know? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Right, so I wanted to apologize to my colleague. You actually had your hand up first, so I'd like to recognize Councilor McLaughlin, please.
No, it's okay, Madam Chairwoman. You're doing a great job in your first meeting. I mean that sincerely. I do have some questions for you, Mr. Latanzi.
Yep.
Mr. Latanzi, through you, let me just start by saying, unfortunately, I didn't know until I walked into a wake this evening that event was happening today, or I would have been happy to attend and be there. But unfortunately, going into a wake this evening, about 5 minutes before that, I found out that this event was happening tonight. So unfortunately, I hope when the second round of money is allocated, the City Council is given some more proper notice so that we can plan accordingly, so that we can be there, because I think it's very important, especially for members like myself and Councilor Hanlon, who strongly supported Encore Boston Harbor coming to Everett and fought for the host community agreement. To see the money allocated, it would have been nice to be a part of it, but unfortunately that didn't happen tonight. So I hope that can happen on the second round, and it's not anybody's fault, just things happen, and unfortunately it's the way it worked out tonight. So that being said, how many applicants did you guys receive? How many applicants did the committee receive for the first round?
35.
35 applicants.
Yep.
How many were awarded?
22.
So 35 and 22 were awarded. Wow, that's a lot. I mean, that's great. So the 22 that were awarded tonight cannot receive any funding for round 2 of the process?
That's correct. For year 1, round 2.
But then they can apply for year 2, round 1 or
Correct.
2, whatever they so choose to do. But
Yes.
in year 1, the 22. Now the other 17 will be allowed to apply for funding for round 2
Absolutely.
on top of additional organizations that come into the city, into the fold.
Yes.
Correct. Are they all Everett-based organizations that were awarded?
No, not all Everett-based. The parameters that we have is that it must serve, I'll get the exact wording just because it is in the community host agreement. Where did I put that? Here it is. WIN agrees to fund an Everett Citizens Foundation that will be in charge of supporting and promoting local groups, associations, and programs with important city initiatives. So that important city initiatives is really where we focused. Very often, it could be a national organization, it could be an Everett organization, as long as that they show that the impact that this is going toward. Not only did they say, we are, company X and we want $10,000. They say, we are company X and we are going to do this project, and then they describe the project. So the impact that it has on Everett residents or impact that it has in Everett was vital to the project actually being accepted.
Okay. And so, right, so my question is like, Big Brother, Big Sister, for example. Can they come in and apply for the grant funding, and then our money is going to go into a national database that's going to be spread out to whoever knows where, and it does never trickle back into quality of life for Everett residents? Is that a possibility, or have you guys, I don't want to use the word scrub, but have you guys created a system so that does not happen?
Yeah, so through our application, we do ask exactly where that money is going toward. Not only is it to fund a certain project, it's a breakdown of, all right, so you have a certain project, how much is that overall going, and then where's our 10,000 maximum going to go toward? If it does say that we're a national organization, we're going to throw it into a general fund, and then maybe it'll trickle down into you guys. That probably won't go over well.
Did you get any of those types of applicants?
To my knowledge, no. No, they all showed pretty strong interest in working in the city with Everett residents.
Yeah, no, and I will say, knowing some of the members on that committee, not that I know all of them, but knowing some of them, I know how much they love our city, how passionate they are about Everett, so I know that they did their due diligence to make sure that the money stayed here in Everett, because I know that they have hearts bleeding Everett Crimson Tide. And to be honest, can we get a list of the 22 award recipients?
Yes.
I'd love to see who did receive the funding for this first round of applicants. So if we could get that information.
Absolutely.
Will you be staying on as the support staff member consistently, or will that change your position?
So it was Catherine Rollins. She started doing it, the deputy chief of staff. When she left, I took over a few of her roles, one of them being this. I envision that I'll stay on it. If you think I'm not, then you've heard news that I've never heard.
I haven't heard anything, but I'm just asking. I mean, quite frankly, you've taken on a lot. You have a lot on your plate. You wear a lot of hats. I'm just wondering if there's somebody else that would be stepping in, because I know that you came in the middle of the fold because Catherine Rollins was the starting point to it. So I was just wondering if you were just filling in to help out move the process forward. And
I
we
did
appreciate
fill
your work on
right.
it, but if you knew whether or not you'd be staying as the support staff person.
I do believe I will be staying as the support staff, yes.
Okay. Second round, applicants are due by March 17th.
Correct.
150,000 will be awarded in the second round?
No.
No, 100.
So 250,000 is the
100,000,
total.
right.
So there is 100,000 left over. However, it is actually only a 90,000. The board voted to retain $10,000 to the side for tax purposes and all that because, I mean, we started just this year and we were unaware of, you know, who is going to incorporate us as a 501c3, who is going to do our taxes. We are lucky that the incorporation process was done for free. As to the tax process, it was just something that we're not sure. So just to be safe, we set aside this $10,000. We don't have an operating budget. No one gets paid on the board. We don't have anything. So we set this aside as a safety egg, or a nest egg. If it's not used, it goes into next year's funding. So if it's $250,000 next year and we didn't use any of it, it's actually $260,000.
Yeah, no, and you should always leave a neck for something unforeseeable that comes up, that you have a little bit of cushion. I think that's a reasonable approach to that. You'll be able to provide to us the grade system that you guys utilize so that we can see how you got to a 14 or a 10 or whatever the number was that an organization got to. You'll provide that to all of us. Fantastic. When March 17th comes, how long will the process take to be able to, or when do you guys foresee the next round of awardees of the $90,000?
So what I can tell you is that the first few meetings, which happened over months, a lot of it was that groundwork stuff prior to any application coming into our hands. From the time that an application was in our hands, or I would say from the time we decided how to vote, how to accept this grading rubric, how to distribute money, is there going to be a maximum grant? All of that stuff was taken, it took a long time to do. Once we decided on everything and said, all right, let's sit down and grade these, it took 2 meetings, and I mean, they had applications in hand, so they were reviewing it for quite some time. But between those 2 meetings, it was 3 weeks, I believe, from, hey, let's start grading these and let's finalize. So it didn't take a long time. I don't know how long it will actually take because I do have to compile all the information together. I make a gigantic packet. I mean, the thing's like this big after all the applications come in. So I'll do that. I can't imagine it would take more than 2 months after the initial packet or after the closing date. So after March 17th, I can't imagine it would take more than 2 months. It may. I don't know everyone's schedule and availability.
Sometime in the spring, before the summer, this money will be allocated.
I would envision, yes.
And when does it get resubmitted? When does the $250,000 come back to the city? Is that beginning of fiscal year, or is that sometime throughout the calendar year?
No, I believe it was on the opening of the casino. That is the date, I believe. I can look again through that host community agreement because they do note.
I'd love if you could.
It's not that
if you could submit the host community agreement to us. And I think that's one of Councilor Adrian's requests. So that question 1.
It's the date of payments under Section 1B of the community host agreement. I don't have the whole thing in front of me, just the relevant section.
But you'll submit the supporting documents to us, just so that we know when that is. And I think there's an escrow clause in there, right, that increases by 2.5% annually. Mm-hmm. So actually, the $250,000 will increase small. It will increase, though, next year will be a little bit more than the $250,000. Okay. And then going back to the meetings themselves, were they televised? Were minutes read? Excuse me, I apologize. Tongue twister there. Were minutes recorded, or was it? How was the meetings run?
Yep. So it was not televised. It was actually, now you got me going. It was actually held in the mayor's conference room. Each meeting that I was at, anyway. I'm not 100% sure about the first 2 or 3. But every meeting I was at, it was in the mayor's conference room. An agenda was posted online, minutes were taken and accepted by the board, but these minutes were, notes taken and then codified into an actual document that was accepted by the board. It was not televised, though.
Council, from the chair, just wanted to recognize Councilor Adrian. She's in the audience now. Actually, can we have a motion to have her sit with Mr. Latanzi so we can continue asking
So
questions?
make a motion that we invite up Councilor Adrian to the meeting?
If you want to, please have a seat. No, you can stay there.
Oh, sit up there?
As a
Yeah,
guest. And if you can just state your name for the record.
My name is Councilwoman Gurley Adrian.
And Mr. Latanzi, just to follow up from the chair, were the total awards made public? Is it posted anywhere? Can we see the names of the organizations that have been awarded and the amounts?
That has not been posted anywhere yet. I kind of wanted this event to serve as that. After this event, though, I know for a fact we're planning on making a social media post regarding that anyway, but yeah, I can put up the amounts whenever. I have it in a document. I've had it for quite some time.
And was the grading system, sorry, just to follow up, yes.
That would have made one hell of a newspaper story.
It will make
You know,
one hell of a newspaper
mean,
story, I
that
hope.
would have been a great,
Right.
pictures and all that stuff, that would have been a good story.
Yeah, well,
Right.
we have time. Now we have the
I know.
pictures.
It's a great way for the Encore to give back to our community. So were the applicants notified of the grading system that you had so they could submit the application that would satisfy that to the highest, award?
I do not know that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Because I assume that a lot of them were under the impression that they would get the maximum award, and had they known that they had to submit it a certain way, then maybe they would have done it differently, but now they can't reapply. But that's just a point from the chair, and I'll go back to Councilor McLaughlin. If you don't have any follow-up questions, we can have Councilor Adrian ask her questions. And
I'd like to hear from Councilor Adrian, and then that might lead to some additional.
So-
And I think this is an exciting topic to talk about because it's the first time we've ever had this, and I think trying to get
Exactly.
as much information as
I
possible.
know.
I think this conversation is really helpful and exciting for us. Thank you.
It's a great
If
way
I-
to, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. If I may, though, as to the actual scoring rubric,
Yes.
I don't know the availability of that. I don't know if it was online. I know it was in all of our packets. But the fact that there is a rubric and the, kind of what everyone was looking for, what every director was really focusing on, did find its way into the minutes. So, the minutes were there, and the fact that we have a grading rubric, I believe, was on the agenda for the first or second meeting. So, because it is open to the public and it was posted, that they could have come.
Sure, and just an additional point, Councilor Adrian, so before you arrived, we already covered the 5 questions you submitted.
Great.
And I believe Councilor Halen has a quick question before you address Mr. Latanzi. Go ahead.
You had indicated that 1,400, I think, was the low score, or was that, it was 7? Remember you said if they get up to 14?
14 was the max.
Okay.
The lowest score that did receive any money was 11.2.
So they received, now, there was people that must have scored underneath that?
Yep, there, quite a bit.
All right, so, those that didn't get up to that scoring area, if they were to come back in and had no difference in what they were doing, their score would remain the same?
It could. There may be no difference in what they're doing, but they may improve on their application.
Right.
A lot of times, honestly, a lot of these projects are fantastic. Even the ones that we didn't fund, they're amazing projects. Sometimes, though, when you read it, it doesn't get the point across. And that happens all the time, in speech or in writing. Sometimes you don't get your true, full point across. So yeah, now that these applicants know, hey, I didn't get it this time, they have every right to, give me a call, give any member a call and say, hey, I don't know what I got, but I didn't get any money. Where can I improve? And I could read right down the list and say, hey, you scored 2, 2, 2 on these things, so you're perfect here. You got a 0 over here. So that's what hurt you.
On one hand, you have those people that didn't do anything, the winners, and then on the third hand, which I happen to have, are the new people that are going to come along, because they heard about this. They're going to come in and take this spot. Are these people still going to be out if they don't get to the score?
Well, the score will very likely change in terms of like what the threshold is, because it's an entirely new grading process. I mean, we take a de novo. It's, if you got a 9.7 this round, we don't remember that you got a 9.7 that round.
Okay, I understand, yeah, that's good.
All right.
Okay,
Councilor
thank you.
Adrian? Thanks.
So you said all my questions have been addressed?
Yes.
Okay. And so Matt, you will provide me a copy of the responses? Okay. Then that's fine.
And then quite a few more things, as other councilors were asking. So just all the documents I have in front of me.
Perfect.
So, okay, go ahead.
The committee members that have been chosen, they have a time length of term? Mr.
Yes.
Lattanzi?
Yeah, they do. I believe it's 2 years for the mayor's appointees and then 1 for the other ones, just to create the stagger, and then everyone goes on to the same term. Where is that?
So
That
the
wording
mayor's
exists.
appointees get 2 years.
I think just for the first time, like for the first appointment, and that's just to create a stagger so that not everyone falls off the board at the exact same time.
Okay, and then
Maybe it goes up to 2.
the members can continue to be reappointed?
There is a limit to how long they can serve.
Okay.
I will find it.
Do we have all of that somewhere?
It's within all of these papers, yes. I don't want to misspeak.
Nope, that's fine. No-
But
no
I
problem.
do
But-
have that information somewhere, yes.
Okay, and then my question is, the council appointee is renewed annually by the new president of the council?
I believe so, yes.
So, like January, we got a new council president in January.
Never appointed.
Yeah, she's going to appoint one.
So, okay,
Yeah.
so there will be a new member in lieu of the new president of the board. But that individual now won't serve a full year, they'll only serve 8 months or 7
Well,
months. or
they
whatever-
will-
Whatever
they'll-
that time is, because January of next year, we'll have a new president of the council.
But the anniversary of the president of the council may not coincide with the anniversary of the appointment. So if you have a 1-year appointment on a board, you get a year appointment on that board.
So so what I'm saying is this does not turn over annually on January 1st or 4th when the new council president comes into his or her position as president of the city council. It gets renewed at a certain date throughout the calendar year.
To the best of my knowledge, yes. I think that
Can
that
we go
wording,
back and reword that, Mr. Lattanzi?
anything is up for amending.
And how can we advocate to the Everett Citizens Foundation Committee that they make that position of the council appointee prudent to the first week of the new council president's term as president?
You could come to a meeting. We'll have a public participation or a public hearing, I guess, beforehand, and
Are those public hearings or public participations at every meeting?
yes.
Okay, great. So then we
Mr.
can.
Lattanzi, so could you email us the date of the next meeting and also provide us with a list of the names of the current members?
Yeah.
And the organizations that applied and those who received, that received the awards and the amounts? And also a question from the chair. So the members that were appointed, did they have any expertise on the needs of the community?
To my knowledge, they're all maybe not lifelong residents, but have lived here for quite some time. And more importantly than their length of living here is their involvement within the community. Like I said, with one member, Tucker Fiorentino, he is on the Kiwanis, and he's been involved in many things. I mean, I'm sure all of you have seen him at hundreds of events throughout your lives. Cynthia Sarney is one of our members. She's served on at least the Common Council, I think, with Alderman, one of them. Now she's on the school committee. These are people that are very involved and love the city. They're taking no pay. It's not the most grueling work of all time, for sure, but it's still time, and it's still effort, and it can be a headache sometimes, but they're doing it for no pay. They're doing it because they love the city.
Absolutely, and I appreciate their service. And a final question for me before we move back to Councilor Adrian. Was there a process, a communication process in place to notify applicants once we received the application to say that it's being processed and they're going to receive a response within a certain date? And once the decisions were made, I heard there was a huge delay in information. People were hearing from connections they had, but it wasn't made public or notified until a few months later. So could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I didn't want to throw anyone under the bus today, but we received our payment of $250,000 a little bit later than we had expected. We knew it was going to come. You know, we have a great partnership with Encore, and it was a contract. It was going to happen. However, it was just a little delayed, be it for whatever reason. So the decisions were made knowing that we would get the money, but I never notified any of the applicants, yay or nay, because it felt a little disingenuous to say, hey, you're going to get $10,000 and I don't have a single dollar. So there was a delay, and yeah, it was unfortunate that it did take so long, but almost immediately after receiving the money, notifications started going out.
So are you the designated communications person?
A little bit, I guess. The chairperson of the board is default that person, the communication.
And that person is?
Holly Garcia.
All right, thank you.
And just because I'm here at City Hall all the time, and I have a pretty good knowledge of a lot of people in the area, I know who to call sometimes and whatnot, I just kind of fell into that role.
Absolutely, and I definitely want to recognize all the members for their service. So thanks to all of them. And now, Councilor Adrian.
Yes, so you made a comment that I just want to ask a question about.
Sure.
So you said Thomas is part of the Kiwanis?
Yes.
And did the Kiwanis get funding from this?
They did, yep.
How
They
much?
received $10,000, the maximum grant.
So is there any type of guidelines where there's a conflict of interest?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So
Did he abstain from voting?
Yes, he recused himself entirely.
And so everybody, if they had a conflict of interest, they abstained from voting, and there's documentation or proof of that?
Yeah, in the sense that if you look at the scoring, where each score is graded
Yeah.
and taken, you'll see some of them, don't have. At maximum, there are 6 scores. Only
Right.
6 of our members scored because our 7th member never showed up to a meeting.
So Kiwanis right there, that would be him.
Correct.
Because he didn't vote for it.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Any further questions, Councilor Adrian? No? So, Councilor McLaughlin?
Ms. Littens, could you just tell us who the actual members are? Because I know some of them, but I'd like to have them publicly acknowledged as members of the committee.
Sure thing. So Holly Garcia is our chairperson, Viola Tora, Cynthia Sarney, who is our treasurer, Thomas Fiorentino, who is the vice chair, Raquel DeVerge, and Aisha Begdagha, I'm going to butcher that, I'm sorry, and Georgia Wright Easy.
Okay. And who was the member that did not come to a meeting? You said there was a member of that.
Georgia Wright Easy.
Georgia Wright Easy did not come to a meeting. Okay.
At least since I took over
okay.
as staff.
And I have to tell you, the members that you just listed, the ones that I know, Viola and Tom Fear, Holly Garcia, Cynthia Sani, we couldn't have had a stellar committee put together of individuals. To be quite frank, and I'll say it on the record, Tom Fiorentino is one of my role models and idols in my life. To be quite honest, he's a guy I've known since I was a young boy, and I've looked up to, not because of his height, but because of his stature in the community. And he is a guy that's given back to the city more ways than any one of us can count. And it's really an honor to have those members on that committee. So I really hope that they will hope to continue to serve on that committee, because I think that you guys hit a home run on this. And I'm disappointed that I couldn't be there tonight to celebrate the second round. And I thank you for your efforts on this as well, and your due diligence of volunteering to make sure that this was done well and well documented. Thank you.
Any more questions for Mr. Latanzi? No? Okay, thank you so much. Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Adrian. So, do we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, so, I'm sorry.
Make a motion.
Before we let you go, Councilor, so how would we like to proceed with this piece? Oh, okay, we have final words. If the microphone works.
There we go. I have a decent memory, maybe not perfect, but if memory serves correctly, I said you are able to suggest at a meeting a recommendation that bylaws or policy is changed. It would not be coming from this board in their official capacity, nor would it be coming from anyone as a private resident that they are changing any bylaws. It's a right that you have to appear and suggest anything, much like any resident or any person can come in front of this body and speak.
So we will make a recommendation, I guess, so refer back to sponsor with the recommendation that Mr. Latanzi, if you can email the council again, so with the names of the members, the awards, what was the other requirement?
Madam Chairwoman, I would like to see the
host agreement,
community
the-
agreement. I'd like to see the rubric that was used, the grading system that was used, see the 35 applicants that it was received, the 22 that were awarded. I'd like to see all the supporting documentation. I think it's really important. I think Councilor Adrian hit on a good one on this because it's the first time we've done this. So
Yeah.
then we don't have to have these long, lengthy discussions going forward because we all know what the, the case was and how we got here. So if you can provide as much information on this, because it's the first time, I think we'll keep everybody on the same page. And
the
keep
date for
everybody-
the next meeting as well. I'm sorry,
So
Councilor.
that is not decided yet, just
Once you
because,
have it.
yeah, we have to figure that out.
Is there a way that we can have this information readily for the public, though? Can we have this, like, if anybody wanted to look this up instead of just us?
So the community host agreement, that
It's
is available
Right,
for the
but
public.
But the scoring and.
The score, yeah, I can get it on. I
Who
mean,
got it, everything that, basically everything that
the
we're.
awarding?
Right, so
Okay.
everything we're requesting, can the public
Yeah.
have access to it?
I have no issue with that.
So you're gonna put it on the website?
Sure.
All right, then that's my motion. My motion would be to put all this,
Oh,
I can't make a motion. Okay.
All right.
So I'm going to make
Council
a,
McLaughlin.
I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we put all of this information that Ms. Latanzi is going to share with us onto the city's website so that the general public has access to it, so that they can, and if we can do that within a reasonable amount of time, and then maybe look down the road and see if we could even create a website. Maybe if out of that $10,000 that we have put aside, maybe we can create a website designated to this program so that people can go on and apply online, because as you said, you're trying to put the applications in as many places as possible throughout the community, but maybe one way is to be able to put it online and to create a nice website so that everybody can stay in the loop and informed on this. I'd ask that you consider bringing that back to the board members. And
I will consider that. I can tell you it does currently exist. The guidelines and the application exist on the city's website. The $10,000 set aside was voted on to be used for specific purpose, that being tax, I forget the exact wording, but for taxes, essentially, at the end of the year.
But like you said, if it's not used, you were going to roll it over to next year's foundation budget. And if that's the case, maybe we can take a few thousand of it, not all of it, but a few thousand of it, and create a website so that everybody can, on their own time, go on, click around and search and so forth. But I think, again, I think you guys did a great job with this.
Do we have a
Thank
second
you.
for that motion? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you, and thank you again to the guests. Now you can get up, yes. Thank you so much. And can we get a motion to adjourn? I don't want to go. You're staying. Motion, no motion. All right, so. I'm just leaving. Meeting's adjourned.